Welcome, Franklin County residents, and thank you for tuning in to the Candidate Forum for Franklin County Magistrate District 3 General Election held on November 8th, 2022. I'm J.C. Young, and I'm honored to serve on the Chamber Governmental Affairs Committee and your moderator for this event. The office of magistrate is difficult to define. The men and women who serve in these roles wear a plethora of hats. They're expected to be economists, meteorologists, architects, attorneys, agriculturalists, public figures, and the list goes on seemingly forever. As you know, the primary obligation of a county magistrate is to serve on fiscal court. Fiscal courts in Kentucky hold an immense amount of responsibility. Amongst other duties, fiscal courts have the authority to enact ordinances, issue regulations, levy permissible taxes for the purpose of statutory obligations, appropriate funds for county roads, provide for the incarceration of prisoners, fund and hold elections, and oversee the operations in the county for many public functions. In this candidate forum for 3rd District Magistrate, we're honored to have Ms. Kelly Dycus and Mr. Greg Grimes. The office that you are both seeking was created in our original 1792 Constitution, and it's worthy of candidates such as yourselves. Before we begin, I would like to thank and recognize the Frankfort Area Chamber of Commerce for establishing this candidate forum and the Frankfort Plant Board for hosting and broadcasting this event. Serving as our esteemed panelists and those doing the real work in this function are Frankfort Area Chamber of Commerce President and CEO, Ms. Tish Shade, Client Relationship Officer at Traditional Bank, and Frankfort Area Chamber of Commerce Executive Board Member, Ms. Annabeth Bobbitt, and President and CEO of Expree Credit Union and Chair-elect of the Frankfort Area Chamber of Commerce, Mr. John Graham. Candidates, you'll have 2 minutes for opening remarks, 2 minutes for closing remarks. You'll have 1 minute for responses to questions with 30-second follow-ups if asked by panelists. You'll also have 2 opportunities to extend your time or rebut another candidate's response. This is called bonus time. Please just signify to me you'd like to use that, and we will grant that opportunity. Both of these bonus times will be 1 minute each. We had a draw prior to the forum, and opening remarks are going to begin with you, Mr. Grimes. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Once again, I'd like to thank the Chamber and the Frankfort Plant Board for allowing us to get our message out. My name is Greg Grimes. I'm running for 3rd District Magistrate here in Franklin County. I'm a lifelong resident in Franklin County. Not very long. At 33 years old, I'll be the youngest member of fiscal court. Like I said, I was born and raised in Franklin County, graduated in the district at Franklin County High School. My wife of soon to be 12 years this month, Nikki, is a preschool teacher at the Frankfort Christian Academy. I have 2 children, Lila and Eli, who also attend the Frankfort Christian Academy. Those 2 children, along with the children in this great community, is the reason behind me running for magistrate. If we do not do something to create career jobs, our children, when they graduate high school or college, they're not going to come back home. And that's why me, as your next magistrate, my goal is to develop career jobs for Franklin County. Thank you.
Ms. Dycus, 2 minutes.
I'm Kelly Dycus, also running for 3rd District Magistrate. I have an undergrad degree in Human Services and a graduate degree in Mental Health Services from EKU. I've worked in Frankfort since I was 16, I guess. I moved here when I was 15 years old, went to Western Hills High School. The reason that I'm running for magistrate is because I have noticed since working in Franklin County that we are leaving behind a lot of people. We have a huge problem with substance abuse and poor mental health in Franklin County. And I think it's something that we need to work on, and I think it's something that I can contribute to fiscal court. I've also worked with homelessness issues and very large budgets, and I think that I can help with those issues as well. I run the Sunshine Center currently as active director, and I also run a small business, a mental health clinic, and I have to deal with the budget there. So I've done lots of different things, and I feel like I can assist fiscal court in maybe helping with some things that others have not been able to thus far. So thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for your opening statements. Our first question comes from Ms. Tish Shade, and it's going to be directed to you, Mr. Grimes.
Okay. Should Franklin County allow Buffalo Trace Distillery to build warehouses on rural land if the company presents a plan to preserve any wetlands and woodlands and maintains a rural aesthetic on the property?
You have 1 minute.
I'll start out by saying I am in full support of Buffalo Trace. They bring in hundreds of thousands of visitors and tourists each year that spend a lot of money in Franklin County. And also, I am in full support of the text amendment. We've got to do something to create career jobs and bring revenue into Franklin County.
Ms. Dycus, 1 minute.
That's a difficult one for me, I think. I'm not sure about the text amendment yet. I'm not sure that that's where we want to go. I'm in full support of Buffalo Trace. I love Buffalo Trace. They do wonderful things in this community. I feel like as long as we know that there are not going to be any major health issues from this, I think I'm okay with it. I think we have to say yes to something. We've got to bring some money into this community. So I feel like I'm supportive of that.
Okay, our next question comes from Ms. Annabeth Bobbitt. It's going to be addressed to you, Ms. Dycus. You'll have 1 minute to respond.
Population shifts in Kentucky are imminent, and some neighboring counties have seen large gains since our last census. With rural workforce lagging at the projected rate, what can we do in Franklin County to recruit population, new housing, industry, all of which increase the tax base? And then what have other counties done to capitalize on this shift that maybe we have not?
Well, that's a lot of a question there. That's a big question. So a couple of things. You guys are all about development. I think more about people. And so workforce development for me is a huge issue. I think that what I talked about in the beginning, bringing people back to the table and people that we have kind of forgotten about that have been on the outskirts, I think training, mentoring, bringing those folks in and teaching them is really important. We have to have people to work these jobs that we're talking about bringing in here. We don't have that right now. We're out of time, sorry.
No, you have 30 seconds.
Oh, I don't even know. I don't know that I can do that in 30
Okay.
seconds, sorry.
Okay.
That's a big question.
Mr. Grimes, 1 minute.
Can you repeat that? That was a big question.
If you needed to. So population shifts in Kentucky are imminent, and some neighboring counties have seen large gains since the last census. With rural workforce lagging at the projected rate, what can we do in Franklin County to recruit population, new housing, industry, all of which increase the tax base? And then what have other counties done to capitalize on this shift?
One thing we have to do is we have to make it easier for business owners to come in and set up. Something that brings people into Frankfort and Franklin County is things to do, because statistics show that in order for a family to move here, you have to give them something to do. So the Lakeview Park project, we get that up and going, that would give families something to do. You would have the big sports complex out there for tournaments. You would have the soccer fields and all that out there. So that would give them something to do. One thing Georgetown, Scott County did was they put in the water park. I myself go to Georgetown or Scott County so that my kids can have fun at the water park. So I think we need to look at doing Lakeview Park and even a pool of somewhere.
Okay, our next question is going to come from Mr. John Graham. It's going to be addressed to you, Mr. Grimes. You have 1 minute to respond.
In your discussions with the business community in preparing for this election, what are the top concerns you're hearing from them, and how would you address them?
One concern that I'm hearing from them is, there's not enough people out here to work, for one. But I don't know. Besides the fact that there's not enough people out here to work, and the only way that I see of getting people here to work is the government's going to have to stop handing out checks. We're going to have to make people go back to work. I know COVID was a big thing, a couple of years ago, where everybody started working from home. Now the COVID rate is down, so we need to get people back into their jobs and not just working from home.
Ms. Dycus, you have 1 minute.
Can you repeat that for me?
In your discussions with the business community, what are you hearing as their top concerns, and how would you address those?
So when I talk with business leaders, what they say to me is, we don't have enough people to work. That's what I hear all the time. And I think the problem is that people are tired of not making enough money. I mean, that's what I hear from workers, from employees. And I think one way to do that is by bringing in some training programs. I think we need better trained employees, and we need better living wages. And I think until we get that, we're not going to have enough employees to work in Franklin County.
Next question comes from Tish Shade. It's going to be directed to you, Ms. Dycus. You have 1 minute. I'd like to remind the candidates, when the timekeeper holds up 30 seconds, you have 30 seconds to finish your statement. You don't have to wrap it up. That's
So we all keep hearing about the red tape issues that we seem to have in our community. If you could change one thing in our zoning code, what would it be and why?
One thing in our zoning code. Okay, so I don't know enough about zoning for sure. One of the things that I hear is downtown, that this city has too many rules and regulations. I know when I lived downtown, I lived in an old house, and I couldn't even put a porch on my house. That was a problem for me. I think the same thing with zoning. Like there are things that we can't build in particular places that we want to build in particular places, and we can't do that. And it seems very difficult to make those changes. I'm not sure how you go about that and the best way to go about that, and that's something I need to learn more about. But I think there's a lot of red tape for certain, and I think that we need to do something about that.
Mr. Grimes, 1 minute.
Can you repeat that?
We keep hearing about all the red tape issues. If you could change one thing in our zoning code, what would it be and why?
One thing that I would change is just the fact that you have to go to too many different places to get what you need done. They say go do A, B, and C and come back with us. Well, you go do A, B, and C, and then you come back. Well, then now you have to do D, E, and F. And it shouldn't be that way. We need a one-stop shop to where when I go in and sit down with somebody and I ask them, what is your business that you're wanting to develop and everything, and they tell me, I say, here's what you need. Hand them a piece of paper showing the steps they need to take. When they complete that, then we can sit down and talk about where you want to go with that.
Our next question comes from Annabeth Bobbitt. It's going to be addressed to you, Ms. Grimes. Mr. Grimes, and you'll have 1 minute to respond.
So Franklin County has a reputation in the state of stepping on its own toes when it comes to economic development. How do you think we should proceed with economic development efforts?
Well, one, economic development to me means the overall quality of life. So, that to me is career jobs. So that goes back to planning and zoning and having businesses come in to open up shop to give people jobs. That's part of economic development. So we need people to make it easier to open jobs and give people things to do for the overall quality of life.
Ms. Dycus, 1 minute.
Can you repeat that, please?
Franklin County has a reputation of stepping on its toes when it comes to economic development. How do you think we should proceed with economic development efforts?
I think that's really hard because we can't seem to agree on anything. I think that seems to be the biggest issue that we have. I mean, we have all these groups of people that disagree on what we want to be. I think we have depended on state government for a long time in this town, and we can no longer do that. And we haven't decided what we want here. What do we want to be? How do we want to, what do we want to look like? What kind of industry do we want here? We just haven't decided that yet, as far as I can tell. And from the people that I've talked to, everybody wants something different. And so until we have a plan, I don't know what the answer to that is. We have to decide who we want to be and what we want here. Until we do that, I'm not sure.
Mr. Graham, your question is next, and that's going to be addressed to you, Ms. Dycus. You'll have 1 minute.
Thank you. I understand you all are running to be the magistrate for District 3. There are going to be issues and times when something may be good, bad for your district, but could be the inverse for the county as a whole. How do you handle that? How do you deal with that? How do you figure out, do you go with who voted you in, or do you go with the greater good?
I don't think that's really that difficult. I think that the people that are voting for me are in my district, and I'm their voice. And so that's what I have to do. I've said many times that this is not about me at all. This is about the people in my district. I'm a therapist. I listen really well. So I'll listen to all sides of everything, and I will overthink it all. But at the end of the day, I am the representative for my district, and that's what I'll do. I assume that everybody else on the court will do the same. And so I feel like it will work itself out, but I'm the representative for my district.
Mr. Grimes, 1 minute.
I agree with Kelly on that one. The people who vote me in office, they voted me in to stand up for them. The way that I would address it would be to take all the facts from physical court, go out and communicate with my district and give them the ins and out of what's going on, how it's going to affect us, and just communicate, because that's, at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, communication.
Our next question comes from Tish Shade, and it's going to be addressed to you, Mr. Grimes. You have 1 minute to respond.
How would you define a pro-growth candidate? If you consider yourself pro-growth, give us an example of how you have displayed that.
Pro-growth, the way that I explain that I'm the pro-growth candidate is, I'm trying to develop Frankfort to give career jobs for when our children graduate, either high school or college, so that they stay here in our hometown. I'm trying to, work with members of the community to, get Buffalo Trace to stay here and develop their warehouses somewhere in Franklin County to keep the tax revenue and the dollars here. The way that I say that I have helped with that is I've had both of my grandparents are entrepreneurs. They've owned businesses in Franklin County. One of them still does. It's been in business for 45 years. My brother, he owns a business in Franklin County. So I come from a family of, great entrepreneurs that we have invested back into the community.
Ms. Dycus, 1 minute.
So again, growth for me looks a little different than growth for some people, probably. I just look at it from a different lens. Growth for me means that we are growing our people. We're teaching them, we're training them, we are bringing in money in that way. I do not think at this point, and it's obvious, I mean, we cannot keep our doors open. Stores are closed half the time because they don't have the staff they need. So for me, right now, pro-growth means helping our people grow. I don't think that business can grow until we do that. We need to bring people back in. We need to train them. We need to have jobs that pay well. That's what pro-growth means to me. And we need to figure out who we are and what we want in this town.
Our next question comes from Annabeth Bobbitt. It's going to be addressed to you, Ms. Dycus. You'll have 1 minute.
So we've talked a lot about growth and economic development and things of that nature. What plans do you have to prepare areas for incoming businesses?
I'm just going to say the same thing I've been saying. I don't know that we can bring in business until we have people to work in these businesses. we don't have people to work. We have people leaving Franklin County is what we have. We need some job training programs. We need the people that are still here to learn some skills, some trade. We need that badly. The people that are here don't feel like they're making enough to stay where they are. I mean, during COVID, they left. They haven't come back. That's a problem. And I think that's our biggest problem right now.
Mr. Grimes, 1 minute.
Can you repeat that?
Yes. So we've talked a lot about economic development and pro-growth and areas for that. What plans do you have to prepare areas for incoming business?
Well, I mean, you know, as a member of physical court, it wouldn't just be on me, so I would work with the other members of physical court to develop those plans for incoming business. But, you know, like Kelly said, we do need to have training opportunities, and I know we do with the Career Tech Center. You know, you have, I think it's welding and auto tech and carpentry and all that. So, I mean, there is job training going on at the high school level to get kids involved. But it would also be, you know, working with members of physical court to make that decision.
This will be our last question, Mr. Graham. It's going to be addressed to you, Mr. Grimes. You'll have 1 minute to respond.
When looking at developing the community, there's kind of one side of the coin is building new homes, new commercial space, whereas the other side of the coin is we have a lot of infill that is vacant. So how do we balance, or what do you feel is the best approach as far as growing the community, bringing in new residents to help fill the jobs and to create jobs? Do you feel like we need to focus on new or rehab what we have now?
I think both. What I mean by that is, you know, when a lot of people come to Frankfort, they come downtown. If there's a lot of empty storefronts downtown, there's nothing for them to do, so they're not going to come back. So we need to set up something to where we can infill. That's what I consider smart growth, is infill. We need to set up something that we can infill to get those empty storefronts occupied. Because, you know, when I go out of town, I go into downtown areas. You know, we go shopping and all that kind of stuff, but there's not any of that. So in order for people to come here, you have to start with your downtown area. You have to start with your infill before you sprawl out.
Ms. Dycus, 1 minute.
I think fixing what we have is really important, because I think the way things look is important. We don't want empty buildings. It causes lots of problems. I also think that new buildings are important for some industry. I love this question mostly, though, because I think that training programs that I'm talking about and that I love so much, we can use those for this. I ran a very large AmeriCorps program where we trained construction folks, and part of what we did was have them rehab things, have them rebuild things. It's an inexpensive way to do it. It's a great way to train people. It's a great way to have people give back to their community. There's lots and lots of ways to do this. So I think both are important to answer your question, but there's really cool ways to do that too.
We've now come to the end of this forum, and we're going to ask for closing remarks. You'll both have 2 minutes to make remarks. We started with you, Mr. Grimes. We're going to start with you, Ms. Dycus. You have 2 minutes for closing remarks to the electorate.
So again, I'm Kelly Dycus. I'm running for 3rd District Magistrate. I'm running because I feel like there are lots of folks that feel left out of our community, and I want to help fix that problem. I think everybody in Franklin County is important. I feel like we have a mental health crisis. I feel like we have a drug and alcohol abuse problem here. I think every single family in this community is being hit hard by it. I think it's hurting our economy. I think it's hurting our families, and I want to do what I can to help fix that. I have a lot of history with lots of different things. I worked in real estate for quite a while, and I lived it, so I know a lot about that. But mostly I love this community, and I want to give back in the way that I've always given back. So I'm asking for your vote, and I thank you all so much for your time today.
Mr. Grimes, 2 minutes.
Once again, I would like to thank the Chamber of Commerce and the Frankfort Plant Board for allowing us to speak today. I'm here today because I chose to run to better the community. We have to engage in economic development or this county is going to die. And I really want my children to stay here and have their children here so that I can be involved with my grandchildren, and I know you all do as well. So please check us out on Facebook, look and see how we've been interacting in the community. And November the 8th, I ask you to not just go in and check the straight party box, get to know your candidates before you make the decision. But once again, Greg Grimes for 3rd District Magistrate. Thank you.
As we close, I would like to personally thank both of you for seeking this office. You've put your name on the ballot, spent your own time and money, skipped out on family events only to serve your community, and I want you to know that it's appreciated. You've done a great job in this forum, and I wish you the best in the election. There have been some election law changes statewide in the last several years, and there's now multiple ways to cast your ballot in this election, a few of which include mail-in absentee ballots, in-person early voting before Election Day, and in-person on Election Day voting November 8th, 2022. If you don't know where or how to vote, please call the Franklin County Clerk's Office, 502-875-8702, or check out their website. It's loaded with current election information. Voting is a right in this country provided by our Constitution, and hopefully these election law changes will increase turnout. It's been an honor to serve as your MC and moderator for this event, and I'd like to thank all the folks that aren't on camera for your work that make this day possible. Thank the Frankfort Plant Board staff, the Chamber staff. That concludes this forum. Thank you for joining.